بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم ما بعد. باب الاستخارة والمشاورة. قال الله تعالى: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وشاورهم في الأمر فإذا عزمت فتوكل على الله. وقال تعالى: وأمرهم شورى بينهم. صدق الله العظيم. We began this discussion some time back, this chapter which Imam Nawawi rahimahullah has brought on istikhara and mashwara. Just to complete the discussion, one or two points remain. The first, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah has mentioned the verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. This literally translates, Shawirhum is what we call imperative. Where Allah Ta'ala is commanding Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. As we mentioned previously, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was sahib wahi. He received a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such an accolade and honor Allah bestowed upon him, that Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ وَإِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. That whatever he speaks to you, whatever the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam speaks to you, it is not of his own desire, but it is revelation from Allah. So sahib wahi, he was receiving revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the knower of the unseen. So outwardly, there is no need for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to consult any human being when he is receiving directly wahi from Allah. Yet Allah commands him that make mashwara, consult your companions. So from this we learn the importance of mashwara. One interesting point in the verse, if you look at the tartib of the verse, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, make mashwara, consult with them. In other words, your companions. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ, and once you have determined something, decided something, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, then place your trust upon Allah. Have tawakkul, have trust upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many of us have this limited understanding of what does tawakkul mean. What does it mean to place your trust upon Allah? Does it mean that you do not adopt the means at all? Just put trust in Allah, have tawakkul in Allah. From this verse in the Quran, we learn one important principle. Allah is saying, make mashwara, consult your companions. Then when you've decided something, put your tawakkul on Allah. So making mashwara, adopting the means, consulting with your companions, from this verse in the Quran, we learn it is part of tawakkul. It is not khilaf of tawakkul. It is not against having trust in Allah that you adopt the means. Adopting the means is part of the tawakkul. In other words, in your heart, you have the conviction that everything is in Allah's hands. The positive outcome of what I am about to do is also in Allah's hands. But it is not against that trust and reliance on Allah that you adopt the means. Adopting the means, as I mentioned, is part of that trust and tawakkul that you have upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This, what I am explaining, we find that once Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu was asked the question, Ma ma'na al-azam? In other words, Allah says, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ, when you have determined something, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, put your trust upon Allah. So someone asked Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, مَا مَعْنَى الْعَزَمْ? What does it mean that you have now determined something? So to this Ali radiallahu anhu responded, he said, مُشَاوَرَةُ أَهْلِ الرَّائِ وَإِتِّبَاعِهِمْ. Part of azam and part of tawakkul is to consult the people, Ahlul Rai, in other words, people of experience, people who have knowledge. Making mashwara with them is part of your azam and tawakkul. And thereafter, once you have made mashwara, arrived at a conclusion, then following that, That is the meaning of azam. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Now place your trust upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second verse which Imam Nawawi rahimahullah mentions, this is a verse that is found in one surah in the Quran, and Allah ta'ala, or as we see in the Quran, in the tafasir, etc., the name of the surah is Surah Ash-Shura. So we learn how important mashwara is in Shariat. That one entire surah of the Quran is given the name Surah Ash-Shura. And in that surah is this verse which Imam Nawawi rahimahullah mentions, وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Allah Ta'ala in this verse speaks of certain people. وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ. Allah says they are those that have made istijab. In other words, 100% come onto the command of Allah. They are completely following the command of their Rabb. وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ. Three things are found in them that are mentioned in this verse. أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ. They establish salah. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. And the affair amongst themselves is that of consultation. They make mashwara. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And out of the wealth which we give them, they spend in the way of Allah. In other words, zakat. Now Allah Ta'ala in the beginning of this verse says, إِسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ. These people have come 100% onto Shariat. They have made istijab, submitted, accepted the command of Allah. Three qualities are found in their lives: salah, zakat, mashwara. Now if we look at this outwardly, technically, Mufassirin explain, the commentators of the verses of the Quran, they explain, they say that this verse outwardly appears to go against the tartib of Quran. In what sense? In the sense that in certain verses in the Quran, when Allah mentions what is farz, what is compulsory, sometimes few different commands of Allah come. That do this, do this, do this. If normally the tartib of Quran is, if something is farz, it is mentioned together. If something is sunnat, it is mentioned together. You won't find in one verse farz and sunnat coming together. Outwardly, this would appear to be against the rules of what we call balaghat and eloquence. Zakat is farz, salah is farz, mashwara is not farz. This is a sunnat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very stressed sunnat. So in one verse we find two farais and one sunnat action coming together. Mufassirin explain, outwardly this would appear to be against the tartib of Quran. وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ. Allah says those that have accepted their command, the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ. They establish salah. أَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. Their affair is that of mutual consultation. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And they discharge their zakat. So salah is farz, zakat is farz, mashwara is sunnat. Yet such is the importance and the emphasis that Shariat places upon mashwara. This is a great sunnat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is something that is supposed to be part of our lives. That Mufassirin explain, they say, Quran ke zahiri tartib ke khilaf. In other words, it appears as if it goes against the grain of the normal tartib of Quran. That Allah has elevated the importance of mashwara to such an extent that in the same verse where Allah is telling you about what is farz, Allah commands you about something that is sunnat also. So we learn the importance of mashwara. One interesting point, if we look at this verse, Allah Ta'ala says, Istajabu li Rabbihim. These are the people that have come 100% on Shariat. Now what is Shariat made up of? Shariat is made up of the whole Quran. It's made up of the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are many, many farais, many sunnats, many wajibat, etc. Yet Allah is saying these people came 100% on deen and only three things are mentioned: salah, zakat and mashwara. So how is it that just by fulfilling these three things, Allah is saying, istajabu li rabbihim, they have come 100% on deen? Mufassirin explained, they say, each of these things refers to a specific category of ibadat. Now we find there are some ibadat, some commands of Allah Ta'ala, which have to do with what you call your body. This is what we call jani ibadat. Then there is some ibadat that has to do with your mal, your wealth. This is what we call mali ibadat. So jani ibadat with your body, salah, aqamus salah. You discharge salah physically. So that is one category. Then the category of your wealth, mimma razaqnahum yunfiqun. They discharge their zakat. Zakat is a type of ibadat of the wealth. Salah is the ibadat of the body. So then the next question, if each of these things is referring to a type of ibadat, amruhum shura bainahum. Their affair is that of mutual consultation. What type of ibadat is mashwara? So to this ulama explain, they say mashwara is the ibadat of the mind. To learn to use your aql, your intelligence for shariat, for deen. And this is something that is so important. If we look at our 5 amal of masjid, which I greatly emphasize, what we call the brothers that are spending time in Jamaat, etc. This exhortation is given regularly, that by establish 5 amal in your masjid. Of the 5 amal, the one amal is daily mashwara. Daily sit in your masjid, utilize your mind, the aql which Allah has given you, starting from yourself, your locality, your city, your town, your country, to the last person to come on the surface of the earth till Qiyamah. How 100% Allah's deen, Allah's command in the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam can come into our lives. To think about this daily. Learn to use your mind for deen. Salah has to do with your body, it's an ibadat. Zakat has to do with your wealth, it's an ibadat. Mashwara has to do with your mind, that is also an ibadat. Ibadat of the mind, to learn to use your soch, your fikr for deen. And this is something that is so important. We find one riwayat, it's mentioned, that if a person tafakkuru sa'a, sits for a little while and makes tafakkur, uses his mind for deen, for a little while, Allah rewards him as if he made 70 years of nafil ibadat. So this is such a virtuous thing, to learn to use your aql and mind for deen. Today, unfortunately, people are practicing upon deen. Outwardly, physically, we carry out Allah's commands. With our wealth, we carry out Allah's command. But the mind, what you call your aql, your soch, that most of the time is being used for what? Person is in the masjid also, but his mind is working. I got to do this today. I got to go to the shop. I got to order this. I got to sell this. I got to purchase this. So all the time the mind is working for dunya. Daily, our elders tell us, take out little time, sit in your masjid on a daily basis with the satis, and do this mashq, do this practice. Learn to use your aql, your mind for deen rather than dunya. The worry of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the fikr of deen, what should be done, how hidayat can come, how the level of musallis in my masjid can increase, how those commands of Allah Ta'ala which have come out of the life can come into the life of the ummah. This soch, this fikr, this tafakkur, this mashwara that is done daily is a exercise to teach us how to use our fikr, our tafakkur, our thinking, our aql. Learn to use it for the fikr of deen instead of only for dunya. Soch to such an extent that if it is done correctly, now when you are out of the masjid and you're in the business, still the fikr will be attached to the masjid. The fikr for deen. Learn to think how Allah's deen can come alive. This is a great type of ibadat also. And this is what is mentioned in this verse of the Quran. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Allah says, those who have come 100% on Allah's command, aqamus salah, they establish salah, they discharge zakat. In other words, their bodies are used for deen, their wealth is used for deen. And important, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. their minds also are being used for deen. Like we find the sifat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Sahaba described him, they said, Mutawasilul Ahzan. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was always in fikr, always in gham, daim al-fikra, always thinking, always making soch, always in this huzn. But what? The fikr for hidayat, the fikr for deen. So to follow his example, mashwara in our masjids, part of our 5 daily amal, this is a little exercise to gradually teach us, for us to make this mash, to learn to use our fikr and our minds also for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah give us tawfiq.